Thank you very much, Amy. I'll just call up my panelists to please come up to the stage. We've got Didier from Vodafone, and then we've got Didier from Vodafone. We've also got, and I'll allow them to introduce their roles and the companies they've come from. We've got Jorge Berke from Telenor, and then I've got also Abir Hussein, who is from, Elisa, and then finally we've got Virtyt, Koshi, who is from Mavenir. So to kick things off, the title of today's panel is Adopting Autonomous Networks for Agility and Scalability. And to kick things off, like I said earlier, I'm going to allow my panelists to introduce themselves and their roles in their different organizations. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I can start. My name is Jørgen Brekke. I'm heading technology strategy and partnership ecosystem in the Telenor Group. Telenor is consisting of 7 operations in Nordics and in Asia. And then the technology strategy and the global strategic partnership is then across all of those operations in my responsibility.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Hi, I'm Didier Clavero. I'm heading group network operations in Vodafone Group. And it means operations in all different markets that we have in Europe and also the international network and also what we call our global NOCs that are 2 main NOCs, one in Romania and one in India.
Thank you so much, Didier.
Okay, I'm Virtyt Koshi. I'm the Senior Vice President and General Manager for Mavenir, responsible for business in Europe, Middle East and Africa.
Thank you so much, Virtyt. And Abir?
Hi, my name is Abir Hossain, leading the technology and operation strategy at Elisa. Elisa is an operator with main market in Finland and Estonia, and then also yesterday, and we have a long journey in automation and autonomous, with yesterday actually receiving the award of being the autonomous leader, network leader here.
Congratulations on that note then. So pleasure to meet you all. And so to kick things off, we're going to try to flip things around and start with the benefits, right? We've been talking a lot about autonomous networks for the last 2 days. And I think the most important thing is kind of understanding what we want to be able to achieve coming out of this panel is to share experiences from the different organizations on the panel today about your journey towards realizing autonomous networks. So I want to start first with the outcomes that you've been able to achieve. So I'm going to start with you, Abir, on my far left. What are the business benefits that Elisa has been able to achieve on its journey towards realizing or on its autonomous networks journey?
Yeah. I mean, as I just mentioned previously, we've had a long journey in automation and also in autonomous. And if we just run some numbers, I mean, during our past 15 or so journey, we've decreased incidents by 83%. Our data volume has grown by plus 20x, but we've managed to keep our OPEX and CAPEX flat, and so forth. I mean, and then also on the customer side, ever increasing, NPS scores. But what I really like about your question is that what does autonomous bring to in terms of agility? And here, this is, I think, of course, we'll see cost benefits, customer satisfaction benefits, but the agility and adaptation of the network is what autonomous really also brings in. So a concrete example is that we are able to, in a way, autonomously deploy changes to the network, let it be configuration updates, software rollouts, etc., without having human in the loop, because we have a digital twin which is able to then autonomously, through the topology map, understand what would be the impact in the network to the customers, and through that adapt to them the situation. So this is, I think, a very concrete example of the benefit we've already seen today.
That's very helpful to know. And I think on the basis of that, because a lot of what you've explained have been more on the technical and operational side of things, but how would you say that has reflected in, for example, your ability to roll out new services or indeed respond to customer needs or requirements, as the case may be, from that business context?
Again, I think when we look at operations or internal operations, it's increased the clock speed considerably. So, software updates, software rollouts, we don't need to set a separate, team apart that now we have a software update upcoming. So, we need to allocate X amount of FTEs to do this. So it's all programmable, it's all, autonomous. It increases the clock speed considerably. So, and that, therefore, we're able to give the customers as well the best, the latest, whenever they are, out in the reach there.
And those things are really important, particularly when it comes to customer retention, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you want to kind of, in delivering a good service, then you're assuring higher levels of retention, which potentially kind of cuts back on the cost of trying to acquire new customers, because you can retain and then over time then grow your customer base. So that's very interesting. Jürgen, can you please share with us the business outcomes that Telenor has been able to achieve on its autonomous networks journey?
Yeah. So the autonomous network journey is kind of a natural continuation of what we have worked on for quite some time in terms of driving touch-free operation, kind of a vision towards dark NOC. So it's not kind of starting from autonomous network, it's part of a journey. And together with what Elisa is seeing, kind of the configuration management, fault management, incident management are areas where we see kind of concrete effects and results coming out, giving kind of better efficiency, better quality of the service. Anomaly detection is also an area that we have seen, and also energy management is probably from an OPEX and maybe the easiest OPEX reduction, which isn't about changing the organization or changing the staffing size of the organization. It's actually to able to just reduce the energy spend. We have also achieved quite a lot of results. So those are more the kind of traditional operational benefits, which are leading them to better customer experience, more customer retention. We believe also that by that we are driving ARPU as well. Going forward, we see that the autonomous network and the agility in launching new services, doing automated kind of deployment of configuration for differentiated connectivity, when we are kind of selling differentiated connectivity to all the different individuals and businesses, combining that with sovereign cloud services that was presented just when I entered this room, combining that also maybe with satellite options for connectivity. So manage that space in a personalized way is not going to be possible if we don't have autonomous network, and we can automate both the kind of deployment and the configuration of those services, and also make sure that we have automated service assurance to guarantee the delivery of that to the customers.
Yeah. Those are very interesting outcomes that you've shared there. And how is Telenor tracking those business outcomes? Because I believe it's one thing to kind of have those, but then what mechanism do you have in place to track, to ensure that you're kind of achieving those objectives and those outcomes that you've mentioned?
So basically we are tracking, I think, probably like all the operators on three kind of key dimensions. It's efficiency, it's customer experience, and it's the revenue growth. Some of the KPIs are kind of traditional KPIs like MTTR or kind of the self-healing ratio, for instance. It could also be return on investment of the different kind of assets that we have, or even down to individual kind of base stations. So that's kind of how you're tracking kind of some of the traditional KPIs. Then I think it's also important that we are tracking the progress, because to be honest, we are still, at least for Telenor, we are still in the beginning of autonomous network to really kind of take out the benefits. So it's also important for us to track the progress on a roadmap. Where do we kind of want to go, and what are the steps in order to achieve that? And also that we are tracking the architectural change. We believe that to really be able to deliver a fully autonomous network level 4, level 5, there are architectural changes, there are process changes, there are organizational changes that we also need to implement. So we need to make sure that we track those as well, because it's not just about kind of putting in a technology capability into our networks. It's about changing how we work, and it's changing the house we are working in, and that is also part of what we need to track. And then kind of finally, then it's also tracking the talent and the competence development, so that we make sure that we have a competent team that are actually able to deliver on this.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for those insights that you've shared with us. I'm going to move over to Didier at this point. Where would you say Vodafone is at the moment on its journey, on its autonomous networks journey? So in sharing with us the business outcomes, one, be able to kind of map the business outcomes to that journey, the levels. We know that the TM Forum have defined the several levels when it comes to autonomous networks. So at what point would you say Vodafone is at, and how does that map back to the outcomes that Vodafone is seeing now with its investment so far?
Yeah, I think that, well, it's not, I wouldn't say that there is a kind of simple match between, okay, what level you are and then what are the business outcomes. But what I can share with you is that, okay, fine, where I think that as Vodafone Group, we are probably more advanced. What are the markets where we have a more advanced level of automation, and what are the business outcomes or benefits that we can see in these markets? I mean, let's focus, for example, I think that there are two big examples that we have been also even working with the TM Forum, that is Germany or Turkey. Okay, fine. Germany, if we talk about fault management, if we talk about how we are, I mean, automating this end-to-end for fixed and mobile customers, I would say that we are around, okay, 3.5 in this journey. That is, by the way, one of the best that we have across the Vodafone Group. And what I can tell you is that, okay, fine, what are the business outcomes that we see, or what are the benefits from the customer that we see? I think that, for example, I mean, yesterday we were talking about, and even this morning, I mean, we're talking about number of tickets that we have. What we have seen in the last 3 years with this automation journey is that we divide by 2. We reduce 50% of the customer tickets that we have in both mobile and fixed in Germany due to this level of automation that we achieve. On top of that, what we have also seen is that the NPS on the fixed network, for example, increased 20 points in the last 3 years in Germany. Also linked to this kind of course, if you are solving problems faster to the customers, if you are kind of reducing the number of, I mean, even problems that the customer has seen, I mean, you will have an impact and you will have a benefit on NPS. Okay. Another example is Turkey. Turkey, also we have been doing a very, very important and relevant transformation there. We have increased our level of automation that we have in the country. And also we have not only work as technology or as network, but also, I mean, because I really believe that network automation, I think that one of my colleagues said this morning, is not a technology project, it's also a company project. And we were working with customer operations, we were working with other departments in the company. And what I can say is that also the benefit that we see with the level of automation that we have in Turkey is that revenues in the company has increased dramatically in the last 3 years. We were increasing more than 20% with this journey. Everything is linked to network automation. I mean, for sure not. But what I can say is that network automation is facilitating this journey, is giving, apart from the, of course, normal efficiencies level that we have or benefits that we have on operational cost, a lot of benefit on the business. And it could be, yes, as I said before, protecting our core revenues, protecting our, I mean, reducing churn, increasing NPS. You don't need just to talk about, okay, what new business are coming from this, but only protecting our, I mean, core business is extremely important, extremely relevant for us, because at the end, this is a business that has been, I mean, suffering for decrease or flat trend during the last year. Then I think that these are 2 examples. There are others, but these are 2 examples of things that are giving benefit to our business with this network automation journey.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Didier, for that. I think it's interesting to know that even at the levels you've attained, right, you are actually seeing benefits, and it's not about getting to the top level of level 5 before you begin to kind of gain benefits. You gain benefits even at the lower levels, and those benefits then could facilitate the progress at a much higher level. So that's very important. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the use case question, because we've talked a lot about the outcomes. but then want to understand the actual use cases that have kind of driven a maximum value in terms of achieving the outcomes that we've all talked about. So I want to start with you, Virtyt. What are the use cases or scenarios that you've seen working with your customers that have driven some of the outcomes that we've talked about already on the panel?
No, very much so, and thanks for that question. So I'll give you 4 examples. But before I do that, what we are talking here is also processes. So, when you hear the word networks, you kind of maybe perhaps you would imagine how the solutions work together faster and better and so on. But in addition to that, when you run operations like DDA, or perhaps when you're deploying in case of Abir and Jürgen, you also need to have those processes from start to finish. So in that process chain, from plan, design, deploy, go live, then operate and maintain, we try to use technologies that will enable those processes to become quicker, faster, cheaper, as was mentioned before. So in that sort of a process chain, what we have done in Mavenir, we have reduced time to deploy by 70% plus. And that is thanks to the cloud-native and Kubernetes platforms that we brought into network deployment, as well as the technologies that the workloads that are deployed on those Kubernetes platforms. So that's one example. And now, when we deploy our solutions in core and messaging, the time has shortened by about 70%, and that's in my experience. And I've been in this industry for a while with other organizations as well. So that has really helped our customer with time to market, as well as cost reduction. So that's one example. The second example, I think, the introduction of network slicing, which was pretty much a 5GSA promise to the market, which is both a top line as well as a bottom line sort of a benefit. That runs dynamically, that runs on resources as required per demand. Therefore, it scales up and scales down with the quality of service guarantee. So it's one of the first intent-based solutions, if you will. So we have launched those network slicing with segments in TV media and broadcasting, in consumer segment, as well as in the government and defense segment. So that resources on demand is also one can call it an autonomous way to meet the demand in the market. Then I'll give you another 2. So yesterday, we also participated in a panel with Deutsche Telekom and their partnership, where we have enabled, one of the 3 enablers in all this cloud-native platforms that they built. And our contribution that was recognized, we have a press release on that, it has reduced the energy consumption in their data centers for that particular category by 70 to 80%. So really, all these benefits can be quantified. And perhaps the last one, and I don't want to take a lot of time, is that we do have solutions in security that deals with malicious messages, malicious voice calls, nuisance voice calls, and general spam. And there are many operators who have gone on the record saying that unwanted traffic in the network has been reduced by 90 to 95%. And I think that's also a solution that industry really loves. Mm-hmm. So that's a sort of just perhaps a few examples, the way we have at least collaborated with, obviously with Vodafone, with Telenor, and hopefully soon with Elisa as well, and many others who sit in this room. So that's...
Thank you. Thank you so much. Those are kind of very, very useful to note. I'm going to come to you, Abir, to share with us as well what key use case, maybe we'll kind of bring it down to 1 or 2, that have actually driven the outcomes that you spoke about earlier at the beginning of the panel.
I think what Vidya mentioned around the process way thinking, it's essential, and that's also what we've done. And maybe not going to single, processes like, root cause analysis and how we've made it more efficient, etc. I think it's more, one thing is that when we started the journey, we had a lot of use cases, and we built a lot of automations, in a way, point-to-point automations, and we saw these, financial benefits, customer benefits, and what has been mentioned so far. However, one thing that we realized in roughly around 2016, 2017 is that we are actually starting to build this sort of a spaghetti of automations, and we will at some point hit a ceiling. So one of the key use cases that we started building, or could you call it a use case or enabler, is this sort of a data foundation, is that you actually, from the different vendors that we have, bring all of the data from the different silos to a single platform, and then within that single platform have agents to then drive this sort of cross-domain use cases. And one of the key points has been in having a digital twin, or actually what we like to call a digital master. So whereas in generic speaking, digital twin usually refers to that you have a digital representation of the physical assets. When we talk about a digital master, it's actually the other way around, that whatever we deploy in the digital or in the digital master, that is what's being then reflected in the physical world. And that sort of a mind shift change that we did has actually allowed us to then deliver the results or the benefits that I mentioned previously.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. I think the whole discussion around agentic AI has kind of brought a lot more value towards the topic around network digital twin, as not just a visualization tool, but a tool that allows you to test out actions before actually executing them on the network itself. So that's very useful to know. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to come down to Didier, and my question for you would then be so we've Virtyt and Abir have spoken about different scenarios that have driven the outcomes we've talked about. But then for Vodafone, what mechanism do you have in place to prioritize the use cases that you've developed to date?
Okay, I think that from my point of view, one important thing that we are trying to do is, as you said, prioritizing. I think that I don't see level 4, level 5, whatever is the ambition as, okay, we need to apply this everywhere in the company. I think that you need to define what are the use cases that are going to provide you the benefit, and the benefit could be different things. It could be, of course, efficiencies, it could be better time to market when we are talking about new product, new services, or it could be, as I said before, customer experience or improvement on performance that is giving you reduction on churn or increase on NPS. Then what we are trying to do is to use all these different factors in order to prioritize all the different kind of use cases that we want to implement. And also, I think that there are two concepts in network that are different. One is fault management, or how we are doing this kind of journey, avoiding, even if possible, of course, reducing number of incidents or as much as we can, and also being faster when we need to recover. And then there is the other important aspect that is configuration management or new releases or these kind of things that is probably the area where we are less advanced in all the different operators, but this is one area where we have, or we could have, a lot of benefits. Then just to give you some example, on the first part, we are achieving a reduction on the number of incidents across Europe, more than 80% in the last 3 years, what we call critical incident on the networks that we have. And this is something that is extremely important. On the configuration management, I can give you examples where we have deployed now IP backhaul in Germany, more than 12,000 elements. The software has been deployed automatically, without human intervention in all the network. Then I think these are real examples that has been prioritized with the 3 different factors that I mentioned before. And then, from my point of view, what is important, or is our strategy in Vodafone, is that it's not level 4 by level 4, level 5 by level 5. It's about the benefit that we can obtain with all the different automation projects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's matching actual benefits to use cases. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. I'm going to come to you, Jürgen, and on this question around the ecosystem. What do you see are the key areas where the industry and the ecosystem can collaborate or need to collaborate the most to effectively accelerate the pace and impact that could potentially enjoy from undergoing this journey?
So I would be very happy if Telenor could do this all by ourselves, maybe with even one person or with 0 person in a long-term future with AI, but we are far from there. So we are not able to do this by ourselves. So we are dependent on the industry with other operators, with the suppliers and technology partners. And also with customers. And that's an area that we are working more and more on. It's also taking customers into kind of our delivery and innovation loop. But I think there are 3 maybe key areas or key arenas for collaboration to highlight. One is kind of forums like this, where we are sharing experiences and learnings. That's important. That's also kind of a key tool in terms of also building networks where you can have kind of follow-up conversations to understand a little bit more deeper what's going on, because we have to learn from each other. Then the second is standardization. And standardization in the industry and for telco is important for us to be able to drive scale. We can drive scale. Vodafone has a certain set of operators, so they can drive scale to a certain degree. Telenor, we have a certain set of operators and can drive scale. But to really have an impactful scale, we need to also work together on standardization. And that standardization needs to be maybe a bit more agile than it is today. And also it needs to make sure that we are standardizing things that are solving the actual challenges that we have today. So today we have fairly fragmented kind of tools and architecture and data in the network. So we have to work together to standardize so that we kind of get a move away or kind of forward on that. And I think also we need to be a bit faster in adopting best practices in our standardization, so that we are not just focusing on how do we standardize kind of solving tomorrow's problem, but there are a lot of best practices being kind of developed across the industry, solving problems today. How can we kind of quickly move that up as standards? I think that's also maybe an area that we can improve on in the telco industry. But then the third arena for collaboration is then maybe what has traditionally been kind of the supplier-customer relationship with Virtyt from Mavenir and other suppliers, is to move that into a partnership collaboration where we are defining kind of common outcomes, what we want to achieve, and that those common outcomes and those strategies are what's driving kind of both parties or maybe even multi-parties in order achieving that. So that's kind of also something that I think and is going to be needed in order for us to achieve the business impact of autonomous network.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we're out of time, so we're going to skip some questions, we know. But to end this, and please just excuse us 1 or 2 minutes, we're going to end on this note, looking forward. We've talked a lot about what has happened so far, what we've been able to achieve. Now, looking forward over the next 3 to 4 years. And I'm going to put this question to you, Virtyt, and then Abir in closing. Operational efficiency is the most talked about benefit for autonomous networks. But as we look into the future, in the next 3 to 4 years, what role do we see autonomous networks playing besides driving more operational efficiency? So Virtyt and then Abir.
That's a continuous daily job of all of us. I mean, Didier has his own, and you're going to build on deployment, on operate and maintain, and it continues. We do have every year, as an industry, all players, they get more stringent and stringent requirements, more business demand and financial performance requirements and customer feedback and customer experience and so on. So that continues, and we try to deploy latest and greatest, be smart. How do we go about it? So demand is there, it's never been bigger, then it will continue to grow. So in specific, maybe I'll just separate one topic. When it comes to then operations management, what we are looking at right now is deployment of agentic AI in performance management, configuration management, and fault management, and then correlation of all those. very initial stages. Obviously, the LC test will be with the likes of Didier, but very initial stages. So agentic AI is something to keep an eye on. And we have demonstrated that in last MWC. Having said that, with the latest software technologies, things do change all the time. Suddenly, we have had this appearance of OpenClaw, and that puts a lot of current concepts at the question or at the risk and so on. So it's a very dynamically changing environment. So in addition to day-to-day, obviously, the application of AI algorithms, LLM programming languages, different concepts, as well as trying to productize, at least from Mavenir's side, something that the operators in this panel and, of course, wider in the market can use to their benefits. So that would be my sort of a summary.
Thank you so much, Virtyt. Pierre?
Just to add on, Virtyt, I think two aspects. One is the thing that's been actually discussed quite a lot during this conference is the exposure or the expansion of this agent-to-agent interactions and how that will change the shape of the network traffic. And I believe, as I think Didier quite well mentioned, is that when these agent-to-agent interactions increase and in a way explode during the next 3 to 4 years, it's actually up to the network operators like us here to ensure that we can maintain the SLA and the quality that we've maintained as of till now, also during that much more volatile period. And that is where you need then autonomous network. And then I think at Elisa, one thing is that in 3-4 years, we've put a target ambition that, of course, there's the operational benefits, but for the customers, we are aiming to have then 0 incidents by 2030. So, and that would be directly reflected then on the customer level quality.
That's quite ambitious, but we look forward to that in the next 3 to 4 years. Thank you so much, Jürgen. Thank you, Didier. Thanks so much, Virtyt. And thank you so much, Aber. Thanks to everyone in the audience for paying close attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you.